we have a new topic here, which is Mokyu's law number 5, which is the last law of Mokyu's law on bond pricing. What is the Mokyu's law number 5 describing? This law describes the relationship between bond price change risk. Here we have change risk versus coupon rate. Let's look at this picture first. We have a bond. Suppose face value is 100, coupon rate is 7.5, redemption 2 times a year, maturity 8 years, and YTM is 6%. So this is the relationship we have. YTM is 6% less than coupon rate. Here we have 7.5. Now, under such conditions, we have an interesting situation. This is coupon rate. We have the anchor point here. This direction, we have higher coupon rate. We increase coupon rate by 50 base point, 50, 100 until 300. And this direction, we decrease base points. We decrease coupon rates by 50 base points every time. So we decrease 50 base point, 100 base point, 150, 200, and 205. Here, when we have minus 300 BP here. So this is the speed of bond price change, or we can say the risk of bond price change. If we set bond price as P, bond price change will be delta P, and the speed of bond price change or the risk of bond price change will be delta P. Okay, or we can say delta square P, or we can say this. Okay, anyway, we find that as we increase coupon rate, the speed of bond price change gets smaller. But they are still above 0 lines. And if we decrease coupon rate, the speed of bond price change gets higher. If it in terms of speed, we can also say this slower. This is faster. What does this mean? We have 2 situations here. First situation, whenever we increase coupon rate, the bond price change at a slower and slower pace. This is the first situation. However, if we change coupon rate, if we decrease coupon rate, the bond price change will be at a faster and faster pace. The more decrease we have for coupon rate, the faster speed we have for bond price change. Okay, so this is under the big conditions here, where YTM is less than coupon rate. Now let's replay this case in Jupyter Notebook. Let's copy the command first. And let's see the parameters of this command. This is YTM, right? This is maturity. This is coupon rate. This is coupon rate. This is face value. And this is redemption. Means the number of dividends every year. Let's paste it into Jupyter Notebook here. I have a log here. This is law number 5. If YTM here is 6%, it's less than coupon rate. Here we have 7.5%. Okay, let's execute this command by pressing the Shift key and Enter key together. Okay, this is the picture, which is same with what we have seen in our slides. And next, let's try to change something. We expect to change the relationship between YTM and coupon rate from less to bigger than. How can we do that? We change YTM to 8%. Oops. What will happen? Not much changes, right? And then we change to another situation. Let YTM equals to coupon rate. Suppose we have 7.5% here. This is YTM. This is coupon rate. This time we let them equal to each other. Okay, almost the same, right? Almost the same. Probably there might be some slight changes on the shape of the curve, but the relationship remains. The relationship remains. This means for law number 5, whatever the relationship between YTM and coupon rate, the rules remains the same. The rules remain the same. Okay, let's describe it again. Please look at it carefully. This is the coupon rate. This is the coupon rate. And we have the bound here. Our par value is 100. Coupon rate is 7.5. This axis describes the coupon rate. We have the anchor point here, 7.5, just as it is. The reduction 2 times. Maturity 8 years, YTM 7.5. Here we have the situation that YTM and coupon rate are the same. And we have our finding is when we increase our coupon rates, the bond price change speed is at a slower and slower situation. Slower and slower. Slower and slower pace. If we decrease coupon rates this direction, bond price change will be at a faster and faster pace. Faster and faster pace. That means compared to the situation we decrease coupon rates, in the situation we increase coupon rates, this situation is riskier. Less risky, sorry. It's less risky compared to the situation we decrease coupon rates because the bond price change at a smaller and smaller pace. That means less risky in terms of bond price change, right? So we can escalate law number 5 to the perspective of risk of bond price change. Price change. Okay. And the conclusion of law number 5 remains the same, whatever the relationship between YTM and coupon rates. The conclusion holds. So whatever the relationship between YTM and coupon rate, the conclusion of Mokyu's law number 5 holds. Okay. That means the conclusion of law number 5 does not affect by the relationship of YTM and coupon rate. So they are the same. Well, do we have any questions? If we don't, let's do a quick overview on the 5 laws, and their relationship to the relationship between YTM and something, especially YTM and coupon rate. Let's look at from the first one. demonstrate all the 5 laws and between all the relationship between YTM and coupon rate. Here we have, here we have the first situation. This is law number 1. Under the conditions, YTM is less than coupon rate. Law number 1. Under such kind of situations, we have the curve like this. It's a downward trend. It's a downward trend. Now let's move to the second situation. The second situation, law number 1 is YTM is bigger than coupon rate. Here we have YTM 8%, coupon rate is 7%. So the relationship between the two, or YTM, is bigger. And we find that the curve does not change much, or the conclusion of law number 1 still holds, right? Or the same, exactly the same. And then the third condition is, let's set YTM equals to coupon rate. We find that the curve still similar to the previous 2 ones. So for law number 1, we think that whatever the relationship between YTM and coupon rate, the conclusion are the same. And then let's look at law number 2. First situation, YTM less than coupon rate. YTM less than coupon rate. Here we have YTM 6% and coupon rate 7%. The curve is upward. The curve is upward. Then let's look at the second situation. Still for law number 2, but the relationship between YTM and coupon rate changed. This time we have YTM 8%, which is bigger than coupon rate 7%. Now we find the line is downward trend. It's downward trend. The second law still holds, but behave in different way. Then let's look at the third situation for law number 2. In the third situation where we have YTM equals to coupon rate, both are 8%. 8% here, 8% here. The curve now becomes fully flat. That is very interesting. So for Mokyu's law number 2, we have 3 situations. It heavily relies on the relationship between YTM and coupon rate. Next, let's look at Mokyu's law number 3. First situation, we have YTM less than coupon rate. Here we have YTM 6% and coupon rate 7%. Its curve is like this. The blue solid line represents for bond price, while the orange dot lines represents for the bond price change speed, or the changes of bond price change, or the speed of bond price change, or the risk of bond price change. We use different words, but their meanings are the same. In this situation, the blue curves upward and orange curve downward. Then for law number 3, we have the second situation. The second situation where we have YTM is bigger than coupon rate, where we have YTM 6% and coupon rate 5%. Now you see the trend are reversed for both the blue lines and the orange lines. Then let's look at the third situation where we have YTM equals to coupon rate, still for law number 3. Now this time we see a flat situation. It's pretty interesting for law number 3. So for Mokyu's law number 3, we have 3 situations. They heavily relies on the relationship between YTM and coupon rate. And then let's look at the fourth law. First situation, we have YTM 6%, less than coupon rate 7%. So the relationship of these lines is, we have the blue solid lines downward, we have the red solid lines, still downward but in different directions. And we have the blue dot lines below red solid lines. Then let's look at the second situation where we have YTM is bigger than coupon rate. Here we have YTM 6% here, 6% here, and we have coupon rate 5% here. So in this picture, the blue dotted line is still lower than the red solid line. So law number 4 conclusion remains the same. Next, let's look at the third situation in law 4 when YTM equals to coupon rate. Well, the situation is the same. So for law number 4, whatever the relationship between YTM and coupon rate, the conclusion remains the same. Then let's look at law number 5. We still have 3 situations in terms of the relationship between YTM and coupon rate. First situation, we have YTM, which is 6%, and less than coupon rate, which is 7.5%. The curve is in a downward situation. And let's move to the second situation where YTM is 8%. It's bigger than coupon rate, which is 7.5%. Okay. The curve is still in the downward trend. And the third situation, still for law number 5, if we have YTM equals to coupon rate, both are 7.5%, while the curve does not change much, right? Still in downward trend. There might be some minor changes, but the conclusion remains the same. So this is a quick summary about the 5 molecules law on bond pricing. Let's get back to slides. We have another quick summary on the bonds pricing models by molecule. Let's look at these slides. Pretty interesting. We have 4 situations described by 4 blocks here. This is low volatility. Here we see volatility as the similar word of risk. And we use the blue color to describe low volatility. And we use the red color to describe medium volatility. It's medium risk. And we use the red color to describe high volatility. Okay, let's look at the transition from one block to another. First, let's look at these transitions. Okay, this one is the coupon rate. And we change from low to high. And this one is the term to maturity or time to maturity. We change from low to high this direction. This is the YTM. We change from low to high. Now, let's look at these slides. The transition from each block to another. If we change from low risk status to medium risk status this way, it means coupon rate change from high to low. If coupon rate change from high to low, what do we mean? We mean that our risk of bond change from low risk to medium risk. Or we can see it from another way. If we change from our coupon rate, change from low to high, our risk change from medium level to lower level. That means if all other conditions remain same, our coupon rate change from low to high, our risk change from medium level to lower level. That means if all else remains same, high coupon rate bond is less risky than that of low coupon rate bond. This is a very interesting conclusion. Suppose if all else remains same, low coupon rate bond is riskier than high coupon rate bond. In other words, that means high coupon rate bonds is less risky than low coupon rate bonds. In simple words, that high coupon rate bonds is less risky. Okay, this is very simple. Of course, we have preconditions that suppose all else remains same. Then let's move this way. If YTM moves from low to high, what will happen? We will have medium risk level to low risk level. Low risk level. So this means what can we say? Under the conditions all else remains same. We will say that high YTM bonds is less risky than low YTM bonds. Okay, here we have high YTM, but at lower risk level. Here we have lower YTM, but at a medium risk level. Okay, so we can have our conclusions from this way to this way. We have the similar situations from this way to this way. Now, let's change from this way to this way, okay, or this way to this way. So from here to here, we mean our term to maturity gets from smaller to bigger. That means if under the conditions all else remains same, longer maturity bonds, they are riskier than shorter material bonds. Shorter maturity bonds. Okay. Suppose we have two bonds and all else remains same. One is 30 years, another is 10 years. By this graph, this bond is, okay, we find that they from medium risk level to high risk level, or from low risk level to medium risk level. So this one is riskier, and this one is less risky. Less risky. That means short-term bonds is less risky than long-term bonds. Suppose all else remains the same. Okay, you can raise other conditions or conclusions from this simple graph. We have 4 blocks and we have 3 critical conditions. They are coupon rates, they are term to maturity, and they are YTM. So now we can have a brief summary on the bond pricing models. The critical factors to have impact on bond pricings are coupon rate, and the time to maturity, and the YTM. So these are the 3 key factors. Okay. This is the end of Module 2, and we have a module homework for Module 2. Okay. Altogether, we have 5 modules in this course, and we have 5 module homeworks. You can choose 3 out of the 5 to do your homework and submit to our TA at the end of this course. So you just need to submit 3 homeworks. You can choose 3 homeworks out of the 5 module homeworks. This is the module homework for Module 2. Okay. We expect you to do a case practice and experience or demonstrate the 5 bond pricing modules. So in each of the laws of the 5 modules, we expect you to demonstrate 3 scenarios. The 3 scenarios are YTM less than coupon rate, YTM bigger than coupon rate, and YTM equals to coupon rate. And you can experience the 5 bond pricing models by yourself for better understanding. Of course, you can change other parameters as well and try to see their differences, including the face value and the annual payments of dividends. Okay, you can change that. But I must tell you the critical factors are the first three. Okay, do we have any questions on Module 2? In Module 2, we talk about bonds. Module 2, we talk about bonds. And in Module 1, we talk about stock. And we find out that bonds is, in terms of products, it's more sophisticated than that of stock. Module 3, we will talk about security market. Module 3 is not complicated at all, but more interesting. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for your time.